Hi, it's week 13. We are finally getting into that proposal, building off of the white paper that you turned in last week. So the first thing I want you to look at is the proposal assignment. What I want you to, understand, just like the little, um, you know, uh, image that I gave you when you were doing the white paper is that you've explained that, given us some background as readers of the situation and made some recommendations in the conclusion, especially kind of focusing on that benefit. But now once you've explained that situation, you want a feasible plan that's going to take us step by step with how this is going to be implemented, executed in that particular institution or workplace that you're targeting. So, for example, if you are trying to, implement a change in a particular department at Oakland University, you're going to talk about who specifically you're going to contact, what kind of initial information you're going to give this person, what kind of training, how many people will be, invited to the training, how long the training will be, what the training will consist of, if there's going to be any follow-up sessions, that kind of thing. So you really want to think about, and if there's any costs involved or any outside administrative people that would need to approve this or anything like that. So you really want to think about, hey, I've researched this. I know how this should look. I know this workplace well enough. How am I going to take us step by step through it, being, implemented as a change? So that hopefully will lay that out a little bit for you. I've given you that information that I just said written out. Your draft is due April 8th, and then you'll get feedback from me, and you'll have a peer review, and then you'll have the final copy is actually due on the last night of the semester, April 17th. So that's kind of the plan. Now, what needs to be included? The title page, just the same one that you had for your white paper, table of contents. So you're going to want to think about the fact that you've got a list of figures, an executive summary, introductory, kind of background information, and you'll just guide us through the steps of that. The conclusion, obviously, the references page, and the appendix. The appendix is going to make a little bit more sense in just a minute, and so will the list of figures. But ultimately, we're looking at for the list of figures, any graphs, charts, or illustrations from your primary or secondary research that fit in and would help to illustrate. So if you did a survey, for example, in your primary research section, which, like I said, this will make sense when we talk about that in a couple of minutes, but then you might want to put the pie the pie chart that illustrates that 82% feel that stress in the university student population is very high, and so you're going to want to kind of use anything graphically that's going to support. The appendix could be it could be pertinent research from your results, but it also could be the tools that you've used or so the survey questions themselves or interview questions. So basically, what supplemental material will help your reader have a better idea of how you've collected all of the information to make this pretty firm recommendation. Now, like I said, I've kind of gone through all of that, but one thing that I believe, and I've mentioned it above, your little graphic organizer here puts qualifications underneath the project plan. I kind of personally think it should go before. And why I say that is because the qualifications section, in my opinion, is a good place to embed the results of your primary research. What were you able to find when you investigated this, with using your own methods? And then after you've kind of built what the experts say, built in what you've ascertained from your primary research, what would be the most logical steps? And like I said, I think that helps us connect, that qualifications part helps us connect more with the actual target workplace or institution because we've asked people who would be directly connected to it. All right. For the draft, and for the final copy, I want everything. So I want you to do the title page, the table of contents, the list of figures, the executive summary, and there are a lot of examples online of how these look. I've been searching for one that would somehow globally represent all of your different topics, and I've been unable to do that. But please feel free to search for samples of proposals online. I think it will give you a good working idea of what some of these can look like completed. Now, another thing that I have put up for you is just a short video. It's only a few minutes long, but it gives you 5 questions that are inherent to the construction of any type of proposal. She talks mostly about academic proposals, like if I were proposing to speak at a conference, but I think in general, these questions are things that you're going to want to have at the forefront of your mind as you're forming the last part of this. And then I do have just a handout that gives you just some more guidelines in regards to how to set this up. But those of you who did take Writing 1060, a lot of us moved you from a literature review to a primary research component. You've kind of done your literature review in that white paper. You've gotten the research together, you've explained the problem, you've recommended a solution. Now you're going to add that primary research part, and you're going to give those viable steps and pull this all together as one main proposal. The other thing that I wanted to remind you about is just how to do level headings in APA. So if you have, your own title at the top of the first page of your text should be centered but not bold. And then you're going to most likely center and bold your subheadings, your subtitles. But if you delineate further than that, you'll move into level 2 headings, level 3, probably not further down than that. But not only does it explain what you need to do, but below shows you what that looks like. Similarly, I've given you a link to how to add a figure into the text of a project. So you've got different types of figures and the kind of description that you would have underneath them, which is down a little bit lower. And again, this is something that you're going to want to think about. What exactly would, it could be an actual photograph if that would be the most realistic. It could be a diagram. It could be a graph. But you'll have to consider what would be most likely to convince your audience with a visual representation as additional evidence that this particular solution is the best for this problem. All right, so now what I want you to do for the actual assignments for this week is the first thing is I want you to think about what primary research you're going to add to this particular project. So it could be an interview, it could be a survey, it could be a poll, a questionnaire. For some of your topics, it could be field observations. Some of you could also go to already, collected data, something like the Census Bureau or something like a fact sheet, and take the data that they collected and explain how that pertains to your particular solution or an illustration of the problem. But most of the time, students pick a survey. They're pretty easy to set up in Google Forms, or they ask a particular person in their workplace interview questions, or maybe they observe so that they can collect data that way. What I want you to do is I want you to submit the tool. So if you create a survey, the link to the survey or a Word document with interview questions or an observation chart or something like that, and then brief explanation of how you'll use it to collect the data. And you really only have about a week to get this data collected. So you're going to want to not only create this, but start setting up how you're going to talk to somebody or send these surveys out or whatever that is. So you'll, like I said, want to get busy on that right away. What I did in this particular assignment is I have a online text box, so you can explain, how you're going to use it to collect data. And then you can either put the link in there if it's something like a survey, or you can upload an attachment if it's, a Word document with questions or a chart or something like that. All right. Next thing that you're going to do is you're going to create a memo. Now, way back in the beginning of the semester, we created a memo. We created one for good news and one for bad news, if you can remember those. What I'm going to have you do is construct a memo that more or less serves as an introduction to this formal business proposal. So I want you to think of the individual that you would be sending the memo to, include your heading, the necessary content that's going to preface your business proposal, and I gave you the link to the memos, the way that you need to set them up according to the heading and the introductory information, the context, all of that, just to refresh your memory. You'll submit that. All of the assignments this week are due by Sunday at 11:55. The final thing is that you're going to take that memo. I'm not going to do a review of it formally. I'll have your peers do that, so you'll be able to make corrections for the final week, that final last day of the semester submission, because you'll turn in both the memo and the proposal in its final draft form. So this peer review should help you kind of work out some of the errors with that. If you have questions about the assignments this week, just let me know. You guys have been great about sending emails when you're running into confusion. So keep doing that. That's the best way to go about it. It lets me know what might be a gap in an explanation, and then I'm able to redirect you as soon as I can. Beyond that, have a great week. I'm looking forward to seeing how this all comes together.